Today on the Spone Train podcast, we're going to be talking about the mechanism that creates all emotion. We're going to talk about what we can learn about life from a Kenny Rogers song. And we're going to talk about how to use this principle to make your life better. And I mean a lot better. And it can change fast using this simple technique. And stick around till the end, because at the end, I'm going to give you one question that can change your life. So lots to cover in this episode. I'm super excited. If you don't know, my friend and one of my mentors, Matt Aitchison, and I have an event coming up called Winter Wealth Camp, and that is in Lake Tahoe, January 9th through 12th. He was just on my podcast a few weeks ago, so if you want to check out that episode with him and see what Matt's all about, he's a 31-year-old entrepreneur, killing it in real estate. He's a huge influencer. So him and I are putting on this event where we are changing mindsets. We are coming up with a 2020 plan for your business, for your life. And then we're going to do a bunch of subconscious programming and get you all set to have the best year ever. So if that interests you and you want to do some skiing and hanging out with us in Lake Tahoe, California in January, go to sponetrained.com/winter wealth camp. We only have 20 spots available. And I think we literally just launched this yesterday, and I think we have 5 of them full already. So it's going to fill up fast. Great discount. Go check it out. sponetrain.com/winter wealth camp if you want to get your mindset right for 2020. And so today I want to talk about an important principle that's come up for me a lot lately. And I think you guys are going to like this. So first of all, I want to start off by sharing a Kenny Rogers song with you. And this song is called The Greatest. And it's an old song. I don't know, probably the 80s. I have no idea. And it's about this little kid who says, I am the greatest. I'm the greatest baseball player. And so the kid's out in the yard and he's throwing a ball up to himself and he swings and he misses. He says, that's okay. I'm the greatest hitter there ever was. And so he throws the ball up in the air and he swings again and he misses. And he's still convinced that he's the greatest ball player ever, right? So this little kid takes the ball up one last time. He throws it up in the air and he swings and he misses and he strikes out. And the kid goes, wow, even I didn't know that I could pitch that well. I think he says, I didn't know I could pitch that good, but I'm a little grammarian. So I say, well, so he said, even I didn't know that I could pitch that well. I'm such a great pitcher. And this simple story demonstrates the principle that we can make meaning out of anything, that we get to decide what things mean. And we're going to get into that in this episode. That's what it's all about. It's about meaning as the root of emotion, how it works, how it affects our endocrine system, and how to take control of the meaning that you make of your life so that your life can be empowering, so you can feel better, so you can access more empowering emotions and beliefs. So just like that little kid, in any situation, we can say, oh, I struck out, I'm worthless, I'm no good. Or we can say, wow, I'm the best pitcher. And your job is to find a meaning that serves you. And I say this all the time. It doesn't matter if a belief is true or not. It matters if it's empowering. So if you think you're the best in the world at something, is that an empowering belief? It might not be true, but it might be an empowering belief that makes you better at what you do. It makes you more fearless with less hesitation. And the same thing with meaning. It sometimes doesn't matter if the meaning's true. It matters if it's empowering for us. So in every situation, we get to decide what meaning we make. So give you a couple examples. So think about soldiers going to war. Most people fear death, but when a soldier has a purpose and they're working for something greater, they overcome that fear of death because of the meaning that they make. Think about kamikaze pilots. Or suicide bombers. They make a meaning in their head that because of this suicide bombing, that they're going to have something, right? And that's what it means to them. Most of us, if we were put in that situation, we'd be scared to death. We'd regret it. We'd try to stop. But because of the meaning they make, they take different actions. The meaning you make in things in life will determine your actions because it determines your emotions. Now think about this. Rejection can mean 2 different things as well. Now in business and sales, if you fear rejection, you're not going to want to make calls because as humans, we're programmed to have this deep subconscious wiring to fear rejection. Because if we get rejected from our tribe we're going to die. That's essentially what we all feel like. If we get rejected, we're going to die. And that shows up in a lot of ways in our life. For example, the fear of public speaking. But for salespeople, rejection is part of their job. And if they can make a meaning that with every rejection, they're one step closer to a sale, that with every rejection, they're going to get feedback that's going to improve their skill and be that much closer to closing a sale and to building their business. Now the meaning of rejection has changed, right? The default program in our subconscious is that if we get rejected, we die. But by getting hold of that meaning and changing it to mean that with every rejection, I get closer to building a bigger business, I get closer to making a sale, that feels different in our nervous system, which feels different in our endocrine system. Our emotions change, our vibration changes, and the actions we take change, all based on a simple shift in meaning. So here's the mechanism with how that works. Now, you guys know, maybe you're familiar with some of the NLP principles, that we have 5 senses, and our 5 senses are how we perceive the world. But how we perceive the world is meaningless until we make a meaning out of it. If you guys have ever studied Landmark or done the forum, that's a huge part of all of their content, is that life is empty and meaningless, but we get to decide what things mean. So we perceive the world with our 5 senses. We see things around us. We see things inside of our own head. We hear things around us. We have our own internal dialogue. We feel things. We feel emotions. We feel textures. We have a sense of smell and a sense of taste, right? Those are our 5 senses. That's how we perceive the world. And then those stimulus get sent through through the files in our neurology, right? Our nervous system says, okay, where have we seen something similar to this? Oh, when we were a little kid, we smelled this and we think that this was linked up, right? We smelled ginger snap cookies that our grandma used to make, and we just smelled them again. Now we can feel love, because that's the meaning of ginger snap cookies that our nervous system has created. So we have those 5 senses, those create a stimulus. We run those through the files in our library of our nervous system and say, okay, great, here's what this means. Now that meaning then sends a signal to our endocrine system, which changes our emotions. Our endocrine system releases hormones. Those hormones become emotions. They shift the vibration, the feelings in our body. And remember, all actions come from emotion. We act emotionally and justify with logic. This is how we work as humans. We cannot act differently than our vibration, than what we're resonating with. And those emotions determine that resonance. And then you go one step back, and the meaning determines or predicts the emotions. It creates the emotions. So everything in your life is just a meaning, a pattern of making meaning. Now, most of the time, again, this goes on below conscious awareness. We think our boyfriend or our girlfriend left us. This means that I'm worthless. It means I'm not loved. It means women are bad, or men are bad, or relationships are stupid, or monogamy doesn't work. We make these meanings, but most of the time it's automatic, right? It's instant and automatic. We create a meaning. And instead of leaving it to our default program, I'm going to encourage all of you listeners to take that meaning and make it something constructive. Notice the thoughts that come up. Notice the meaning you're making as you go through life, and then choose something more empowering. And I'm going to share a couple ways to do this in a moment. But that is the quality of your life. Listen, bad stuff happens to everyone all the time. Literally every day something bad happens to me. But it's the meaning that I make of it. If I say, wow, that's an interesting thing, that makes life exciting. There's something to be learned from this. When I do that and make that meaning out of all of the, where I used to work, we would call them opportunities, right? They're not problems, they're opportunities. And just changing those 2 words changes the meaning in the nervous system, which changes the emotions around it. So whatever bad is happening in your life, maybe you got fired from your job, and that doesn't mean you're worthless. Maybe it means that you now have an opportunity to do something better, to do something you're passionate about, to find a better opportunity. Maybe you wanted to quit that job anyway. Now that you got fired, you don't have to quit. There's so many things that everything can mean so many different things, but you get to decide what it is. Most people don't realize that the meaning creates the emotion. So again, look at everything that's going on in your life, things that are bad, maybe goals you haven't accomplished, uh, things that you screwed up, and find a new meaning. You can go back all the way to the day you were born, look at all those events, right? In seventh and eighth grade, I didn't have very many friends. So when I look back, I can think, actually, I didn't have any friends. We had just moved for, I think, the fourth time in my life. And it was a tough move for me and I didn't have any friends. And now looking back, instead of saying, oh, I wasn't, people didn't like me, I'm not likable, I'm worthless, I look back and I say, wow, that was a great opportunity for me to learn to adapt, for me to learn techniques to get people to like me. And now what I do is I teach people how to influence. I teach everybody how to get people to like them. So it was a really emotional way for me to get pulled into what I'm doing now. Maybe it was God's plan for me to not have any friends so I can know what it was like to be lonely, to be alone, so that when I teach these principles to people on how to get people to like you, how to build really strong connections, I can relate to it. Does that make sense? That thing that was bad, quote unquote bad, led me to a new path in life, which now I get to do what I'm passionate about. I get to develop skills that I otherwise wouldn't have. And that meaning that I create gives me purpose. So everything in your life, let's get into right now how we can, like, some simple strategies to create new meaning. And in NLP, one of the ways we do that is called the reframe. So anytime something happens, we look at an event or a circumstance, when we make a new meaning of it, we're doing what's called a reframe. So think about if you took a picture that was in a crummy old frame and it was dusty, and you took that picture out, you cleaned it up, and you maybe did some highlights, you put a new picture frame around it, and you put it in a spot in a museum with a light on it. That's going to be a totally different picture than one that's just sitting in your attic all dusty and beaten up, right? So that's what we're doing with a circumstance in our life. We're going to take it, clean it up, reframe it in a way that it looks attractive to us, and we're going to put it on the wall in the museum with a light on it and make it something special. That's a metaphor for how we're going to reframe things in life. And one way to do that is to shift perspective. And I do this a lot with my clients. I imagine them in their own perspective. And most of us, we only live in our perspective. And so someone does something to us, it means something, they've attacked us. We selfishly have our own perspective. And instead I take them and I put them into the other person's perspective. That's a way to make a new meaning. And from that other person's perspective, they can see, well, that person didn't want to hurt them. That person was doing the best they could with the resources they had. That person was scared. That person had some story that they were living that they couldn't act in any other way, right? And from taking on their perspective, we get to make a new meaning that it wasn't about us, that they weren't attacking us, they didn't mean to harm us, that they had their own stuff going on. And with that meaning, it almost frees us from blaming other people. I also have people take on the perspective of God or the universe, whatever they believe in. So imagine you look back at a bad thing that happened in your life and you're upset about it, you're traumatized by it. But what if you took God's perspective on that same event? God, who's all-knowing, who sees the way forward, who knows that there's bigger things in life for you, who knows that negative circumstance only created deeper emotions, more compassion, more strength, right? And from God's perspective, there's a whole different meaning. Think about anything bad that's happened to you. From God's perspective, it means something totally different than from your shallow, linear human perspective. And that's what a reframe is. You're changing the perspective, you're changing the meaning on something so that it can be empowering for you. Now, as Tony Robbins always says, life happens for you, not to you. If life is happening to you, you're a victim. And maybe, to be honest, maybe it does just happen to us. But if you take on and make a meaning that it happens for you, you're going to have a totally different life, even if it's just an illusion. But, again, a belief is better to be empowering than it is to be true. So I'm going to take the belief that life happens for me, and that's the filter that I'm going to see everything in my life. something bad happens, I'm going to say, wow, that just happened for me. I wonder why. And I'm going to open my eyes. I'm going to tune in my reticular activating system to find the good in everything, because I believe that life happens for me. So maybe that's a good belief for you to take on. And maybe from life happening for you, you can make a new meaning for everything. Now, one of my favorite reframes is, how can I grow from this? What is there to learn from this circumstance? Because everything in life is an opportunity for growth. You know, I believe that we come to earth to learn and grow. We come to shed layers of fear programming, and life is about growth. If you're not growing, you're dying, right? So anytime something happens, you get fired from a job, you screw up a deal, you ruin a relationship, there's always growth that can take place. And from the perspective of blame or victim, you don't look for that opportunity, and you're more likely to repeat it over and over. How many times have we been in a relationship and it ends the same way every time, right? Oh, they got selfish, they did this, and we blame them, and we don't see that it's us, that it's our patterns repeating themselves, because we don't give it a meaning that there's something to learn in it, right? We play the victim card. We say, oh, men are abusive, women are liars, instead of saying, what's the meaning? What can I learn from this? So one of the best reframes is, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? Now, here's the question that can totally change your life if you start asking this stuff. Remember, the quality of your emotions are the quality of your questions. So when you ask questions, you're creating a focus shift and you're creating a meaning, because you're changing what you're focusing on. So one of my mentors, Rock Thomas, who was on the podcast, and that was a great episode. If you guys want to go back and listen to the episode I did with Rock Thomas, one of the things that I learned from him is a reframe question. What's great about this? So in any situation, you can just ask that question. And because you ask that question, your mind seeks an answer. Your reticular activating system looks for something that's great. And then you're going to reframe that situation. You're going to make a new meaning. So Rock got alopecia and he lost all of his hair. And he said, what's great about this? He said, well, I don't have to worry about shampoo. I don't have to pay for haircuts. So instead of paying for those things, I'm going to go get a massage every week. And so he found the good in a situation that most people would be victim to, because he asked that question. What's great about this? So that kind of wraps up this episode. We'll do a quick recap, and remember, everything in life, your emotions stem from the meaning you give it. We have stimulus all around us, what we see, what we hear, what we feel, what we taste, what we smell, and all of those stimulus then create a meaning in our nervous system. And if we don't control that meaning, it controls us. That's our subconscious mind, our ego running our life. And so when we get to decide what things mean, we get to decide how we feel about them, then our life is totally different, because we always behave congruently with how we feel. So if you feel empowered, you're going to act empowered. And remember, we talked about the Kenny Rogers song. Even I didn't know that I could pitch that well. I didn't know I was that great of a pitcher. Reframing things so that you can't lose. Always reframing, giving things a new and empowering meaning is going to change the quality of your life. And then, a couple of the ultimate reframes. Life happens for me, not to me. What's great about this? And what can I learn from this situation? And how can I grow from it? So those are the questions that I ask myself. I'm always looking to see what my brain is kicking out for a meaning for things. And then I'm taking that and I'm reframing it to mean something better, something more empowering. And that's really how you take control of your emotions and how you live in that positive state. Most people don't do this. They don't control their meaning. They let their meaning happen to them. They let their ego, their fear patterns come up with a meaning. And from that situation, they're always going to feel separate from people. They're going to feel distance. They're going to find blame, and they're not going to feel empowered. And not having control of your life is one of the top reasons for depression and anxiety. So change what things mean. You're going to change your emotions. Now, if you like this content, I talk about the reframe in my Hacking NLP course. So if you're interested in hacking NLP, it's sponetrain.com/hacking NLP. And we get into all kinds of other linguistic patterns and reframes, and all kinds of things that control what our five senses send into our nervous system that create the meaning as well. So that's sponetrain.com/hacking NLP. And that was today's episode. So the next solo episode I do is going to be on the root of all suffering, what the Buddha says is the root of all suffering, and how to use NLP and some basic mindset shifts to overcome it. So I can't wait to see you guys next week. Again, if you're interested in the Winter Wealth Camp, you can shoot me a message or an email at nicholas@sponetrain.com, or just go ahead on sponetrain.com/winter wealth camp and get registered. And I can't wait to see you guys then. And if not, I will see you on next week's episode.